Hello everyone and welcome back to English with Lucy. Today I have got a very important video for you about verbs with two past tenses. So you might have seen learned written down and learnt as well. This video is going to contain 15 examples of verbs that have two different past tenses, and I'm going to explain why, and I'll let you know if they are correct or incorrect because it varies according to which verb you're looking at. This video is really going to help you with your vocabulary and your writing skills more than anything. But if you want to improve your pronunciation and your listening skills even further, then I highly recommend the special method of reading actual books whilst listening to the audiobook version on Audible. It sounds a bit complicated, but it is a fantastic method that has helped so many of my students, so let me explain. Take a book that you have already read in English or a book that you would like to read in English. I've got lots of recommendations down below in the description box, and read that book whilst listening to the audiobook version on Audible. So as you are reading a sentence, you are also hearing that sentence. Reading alone will not help you with your pronunciation in English. The way a word is spelt or written in English doesn't always give you a good indication as to how that word is pronounced in English. It's really frustrating for learners. If you listen to a word as you read it, your brain will start making connections, and the next time you see that word written down, you'll know exactly how it sounds, how it's meant to be pronounced, and the next time you hear that word, you'll know exactly how it's spelt or written. It is such an effective method, and the best part is you can get one free audiobook. That's a 30-day free trial on Audible. All you've got to do is click on the link in the description box and sign up. Right, let's get started with this lesson. Okay, I'm going to go through in alphabetical order. I've got 15 verbs. I'm going to tell you the verb, I'm going to tell you the two different spellings and the corresponding pronunciations, because the pronunciation does change in most of them. I'll give you the definition, the reason and the example. There's lots to cover, but I really think that this will clear up a lot of your doubts because I get so many questions. Things like, why did you say learnt in the title instead of learned? Well, this is going to clear it up. So the first one is the verb to burn, to burn. And this means to destroy or damage by fire or heat. Now, for the past tenses, there are two different spellings and pronunciations. You can have burnt with a T or burned with ED. Burnt, burned. Now you're going to see a trend with a lot of the regular verbs here. In British English, for a lot of these verbs, we use a T at the end for the past tenses. In American English, they use ED. Now, because we live in such a multicultural society, and in the UK we watch a lot of things from America, and in America they watch a lot of things from the UK, there is some overlap. So you will see burned being used in the UK and burnt being used in the US. But in general, burnt is British, burned is American. So in British English, she burnt her hand on the kettle. In American English, she burned her hand on the kettle. Both are correct. You can decide which one to use. Choose your favourite accent, choose your favourite dialect, and just go with that. The important thing is that you are consistent. Now, number 2 is creep. Creep. And this means to move slowly, and in the case of humans or animals, with your body closer to the ground. Now, there are two past tenses, but only one of them is officially correct. The other one has crept into the English language because of a common phrasal verb, and I'll explain this. So the official way to say the past tense of to creep is crept, crept. However, you will find many people, especially in American English, saying creeped, creeped. So it's the vowel sound that changes. Now, the reason people say creeped instead of crept is because of the phrasal verb to creep out. To creep out. For this specific phrasal verb, the past tense is creeped out. I was so creeped out. Because of this, creeped has now crept into the English language, and it's starting to become more accepted but it is not grammatically correct at present. Let's see if suddenly the dictionaries will start letting it in. An example using both to creep and creep out in the past tense: she crept along the corridor and was creeped out when she saw a shadow. We wouldn't say she was crept out. It doesn't sound right at all. Number 3 is dive. Dive. And this means to jump into water with your head and arms going in first. Now, there are 2 ways that people say the past tenses of dive. However, only one is officially correct. The correct way is to say dived, dived. She dived into the water. However, people are starting to say dove, and this is especially in American English. And they think that this is happening because of the rise in popularity of the verb to drive. Obviously, 100 years ago, people wouldn't use the verb to drive that much because not everyone had cars. And the past tense of to drive is drove. So they think drive, drove, dive, dove. It's not correct, but it is now commonly used. An example using the correct past tense of dive is he dived into the cool turquoise lagoon. That's such a nice sentence. Number 4 is to dream, meaning to experience whilst asleep. Now, this is another case of the T or ED ending dilemma. We end with T in British English and they end with ED in American English. Both are correct. Both are absolutely fine. You've just got to be consistent. So we have dreamt, dreamt in British English and dreamed, dreamed in American English. Now notice the vowel sound changes, but also the consonant sound at the end changes. Dreamt, dreamt, dreamed, dreamed. And I think the British English version is usually harder for learners of English to pronounce because the to t sound, you're going from a voiced consonant sound to an unvoiced one, and that for some reason is quite complicated for our mouths. Dreamt, dreamt. We almost want to put a p sound in there, dreamt, but don't do that. An example, I always dreamt of becoming a YouTuber. That's a lie. I wanted to be a reconstructive plastic surgeon. I wanted to help people rebuild their faces after car crashes. You learn something new about me every day. Let's move on to number 5. This is to grind, grind. This means to break or crush something into very small pieces, either using 2 hard surfaces or a special machine. Now, this is an irregular verb, so the past tense is ground, ground. She ground it. However, some people do make the mistake of saying grinded, grinded, and this is becoming more mainstream because of American sports commentary. So you're more likely to hear grinded in American English, but of course it will sometimes bleed into British English as well. So because the term grinded is accepted in American sports commentary, people are now saying it more and more out of context as well. An example, the team grinded out a 10-0 victory. An example of the correct use of ground, I ground the chili seeds into a powder before adding them to the dish. Number 6 is kneel, kneel. Now it's funny because in British English we say knelt, knelt, which makes it an irregular verb. However, in American English they say kneeled, kneeled. They do also sometimes say knelt, but they are also inclined to say kneeled, which kind of makes it a regular one. To kneel means to be in or to move into a position where your body is supported by a knee or knees. And an example, when he knelt or kneeled down on one knee to ask her to marry him, he felt nervous. Number 7 is very similar again. It is to lean, to lean. There are 2 very common definitions for this. It could mean to rest on or against something for support. It could also mean to bend or move from a vertical position. In British English, we say leant, leant. In American English, you guessed it, they say leaned, leaned. I'll do examples with both meanings. The man leant on the wall, the woman leaned out of the window. Either pronunciation and spelling can be used for either one depending on who's talking. Number 8, again, very, very similar. It is to leap, to leap. This means to jump high or a long way. In British English, we say leapt, leapt. And in American English, they usually say leaped, leaped. An example, the dolphin leapt out of the water. Number 9 is another similar one, and it's the one I get asked about most, especially by Americans who have stumbled across my videos where I've said how I learnt Spanish or something like that. It is to learn, learn. And this means to gain knowledge by studying, being taught, or experience. In British English, we say learnt, learnt. American English, they say learned, learned. An example, I learnt a lot in English class yesterday, or I learned a lot in English class yesterday. Now, number 10 is to plead, to plead. Now, there are 2 possible past tenses for to plead, but only one is correct, but the incorrect one is now becoming widely accepted. So the correct past tense is pleaded, pleaded. However, pled. Pled is becoming more common, but it's not officially correct and it's rejected by grammar lovers. It has 2 common meanings. It could mean to ask someone for something in a very strong or serious way. It could also mean to state in court that you are guilty or not guilty of a crime. You might have heard he pled guilty when technically it should be he pleaded guilty. Let's look at examples of both definitions. She pleaded with her mum to let her get a puppy. Or he pleaded or pled insanity in court. If you are going to use pled, it's normally used with the second definition when we're talking about a legal situation. Now, number 11 is to shrink, which means to become or to make something smaller. Now, this one does have 2 different past tense. It's an irregular verb, so the past simple is shrank and the participle is shrunk. Shrink, shrank, shrunk. However, there is a movie that has messed this up for everyone. And the movie is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Now, I shrunk should be I shrank because that's the past simple. Now, this technically should be Honey, I've shrunk the kids. Or Honey, I Shrank the Kids. The title of the movie is grammatically incorrect, so now everyone says shrunk instead of shrank. Number 12 is smell, to smell. This means to have a particular smell, or it means to be able to recognise a particular smell. Something smells, or you smell something. This again is the T versus ED, British versus American dilemma. In British English, we say smelt, smelt, and we lose an L. In American English, they say smelled, smelled. Examples, she smelt or smelled of vanilla and roses, or he smelt or smelled her wrist, and she smelt or smelled beautiful. Number 13 is very, very similar apart from its spell, spell, which means to say or write the letters of a word in the correct order. It's exactly the same format as smell. In British English, we say spelt, spelt. In American English, they say spelled, spelled. An example, my surname is spelt or spelled Earl, E-A-R-L. Number 14, again, very, very similar. It is to spill, to spill. And this means to flow over the edge of a container by accident. British English, we say spilt, spilt. American English, they say spilled, spilled. Both are absolutely fine. An example, water had spilt or spilled out of the bucket onto the floor. And the last one, again, it's very, very similar. It is spoil, spoil. And this means to change something good into something bad, unpleasant, or useless. In British English, we say spoilt, spoilt. And in American English, they say spoiled, spoiled. An example, he completely spoilt or spoiled our evening. Right, that's it for today's lesson. I really hope that clears up some of your doubts about why you see these words spelt or spelled and pronounced in different ways. Well, some of them are incorrect. Some of them, and most of them, are correct. They can be pronounced in two different ways depending on who is saying or writing them. You do have some homework today. It is to write 5 sentences using 5 of these words in the correct or your chosen way. So I don't want to see a blend of British and American. You need to choose one or the other, unless you really want to and you feel that you identify with both places. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But yeah, it would be really nice to see those sentences, and I'll correct as many as I can. Feel free to correct each other. Don't forget to check out Audible. You can get your free audiobook by clicking on the link in the description box. And don't forget to connect with me on all of my social media. I've got my Facebook, my Instagram, my Twitter, and my personal channel, Lucy Bella Earl, where I talk about everything that isn't related to English, i.e. my personal life. I will see you soon for another lesson. Mwah.